I had always thought of myself as a typical teenage boy. Sure, I wasn't particularly rugged or into sports like some of the guys in my school, but I thought that just made me unique. That's what I'd tell myself anyway. Growing up, I had always felt different. Not in a way I could articulate, but there was something about how I viewed myself that never aligned with what others saw. But it wasn't until that summer at my aunt's house that everything changed. My parents had decided to take a vacation, one of those all-inclusive trips where kids were optional. They didn't even try to make it sound like I had a choice. They simply said, "You'll stay with Aunt Carol and Mandy. It'll be fun," and left me with a suitcase full of jeans, t-shirts, and sneakers. Aunt Carol was my mom's younger sister, full of life and energy, always ready with a smile. Mandy, my cousin, was a couple of years older than me, already in college, and practically oozed confidence. She had a charisma that I envied, and though we'd always gotten along, I couldn't help but feel like a little shadow whenever I was around her. When I arrived at their house, Mandy greeted me at the door with a playful smirk. "Welcome to the girliest house you've ever seen," she teased, holding the door wide open. And she wasn't wrong. The living room was filled with pastel cushions, floral curtains, and shelves upon shelves of knickknacks that ranged from dainty porcelain figurines to glittering photo frames. It was a far cry from my house, where my dad's leather recliner and sports memorabilia dominated the decor. After dinner, Mandy and I hung out in her room while Aunt Carol caught up on some work. Mandy's room was every bit as girly as the rest of the house. Fairy lights draped across the walls, a massive vanity mirror surrounded by makeup, and a wardrobe so full it looked like it might burst at any moment. We talked about everything and nothing, her classes, my school, music, and how boring summers could be. Somewhere in the middle of our conversation, she casually mentioned that she needed to clean out her closet. "I have so many clothes I don't wear anymore," she said, rolling her eyes. "I should just donate them, but it's so hard to let go, you know?" She stood up and flung open the wardrobe doors. Dresses, skirts, blouses, and coats spilled out in a cascade of colors and fabrics. She pulled out a sequin dress and held it up to herself. "Too extra, right?" she asked, laughing. I nodded awkwardly, not really knowing what to say. Then she pulled out a pink sweater. "This one's too small for me now," she said, turning to me with a mischievous glint in her eyes. "Hey, do you want to try it on?" I blinked.
What?
"No, I'm good." "Oh, come on," she said, grinning. "It'll be funny. Just for a laugh." I hesitated, but her enthusiasm was infectious. Before I could protest further, she was pulling the sweater over my head. "There," she said, stepping back to admire her handiwork. I looked in the mirror, feeling a mix of embarrassment and something else I couldn't quite name. The sweater was soft, far softer than anything I owned, and it fit snugly around my torso. Mandy burst out laughing. "You look adorable," she said. I rolled my eyes, but I couldn't help smiling a little. There was something oddly comforting about the sweater. Over the next few days, Mandy's teasing turned into a sort of game. She'd pull out random pieces of clothing from her wardrobe and convince me to try them on. At first, it was just sweaters and jackets, but then came the skirts. "Just one picture," she begged, holding up a pleated skirt. "No way," I said, shaking my head. "Please? I'll delete it right after, I promise." With a sigh, I relented. She handed me the skirt and a pair of leggings, and I changed in the bathroom. When I came out, Mandy's jaw dropped. "Wow," she said softly. "You look really good." I felt a flush of heat rise to my cheeks. Yeah, you got your picture. Can I change back now?"
But she didn't let me.
Instead, she started experimenting with different outfits, adding accessories like necklaces and hats. At some point, she even brought out makeup. "Okay, this is too much," I said, laughing nervously as she dabbed blush onto my cheeks. "Relax," she said, her voice gentle. "You might actually like it." And the truth was, I did. Each time she added another layer to my transformation, I felt a little closer to something that had always been just out of reach. By the end of the week, I wasn't just trying on clothes for Mandy's amusement. I was doing it because I wanted to. Mandy noticed the shift, and one evening, she brought it up. "Hey," she said, sitting cross-legged on her bed. Can I ask you something? Sure, I said, fiddling with the hem of the dress I was wearing. Do you feel different when you wear the stuff? I looked at her, unsure how to answer. I guess? It's hard to explain. I just feel more like myself, I think. Mandy smiled. I thought so. She told Aunt Carol about my fashion experiments later that night, and to my surprise, Aunt Carol was completely supportive. Honey, you should wear whatever makes you happy, she said, giving me a warm hug. Over the next few weeks, Mandy and Aunt Carol helped me explore this new side of myself. Mandy taught me how to do my makeup properly, and Aunt Carol took me shopping for clothes that were just mine. By the end of the summer, I felt like a completely different person, or maybe, for the first time, I felt like myself. When my parents came to pick me up, they were shocked, to say the least. My dad didn't say much, but my mom pulled me aside and said, "Are you sure this is what you want?" I nodded, tears welling up in my eyes. I've never been more sure of anything in my life. It wasn't easy after that. There were arguments, awkward conversations, and moments of doubt. But through it all, Mandy and Aunt Carol were there for me, reminding me that it was okay to be true to myself. Now, years later, I look back on that summer as the moment everything changed. It was the summer I stopped pretending to be someone I wasn't and started living as the person I was meant to be. And it all started with a pink sweater and a cousin who refused to let me hide. The final week of my stay at Aunt Carol's felt like a whirlwind of self-discovery. Mandy and I had settled into a routine where she would help me pick out outfits, style my hair, and experiment with makeup. What had started as playful teasing and lighthearted fun had transformed into something much deeper. I began to feel like I was peeling back layers of myself, revealing something I didn't even know had been hidden. One evening, as Mandy applied eyeliner with a steady hand, I caught my reflection in her vanity mirror. I didn't recognize the person staring back at me, but for once, that wasn't a bad thing. The face I saw was softer, happier, and undeniably me. "You've got the hang of this," Mandy said, leaning back to admire her work. "Thanks," I said, my voice barely above a whisper. She tilted her head. "You okay?" "Yeah," I replied, but my voice wavered.
Hey?
She set the eyeliner down and rested a hand on my shoulder. "What's going on in that head of yours?" I hesitated, unsure how to put my feelings into words. "I don't know. I feel so comfortable like this. Like this is who I'm supposed to be." Mandy's face softened. "I'm glad you feel that way. You deserve to be happy, you know?" Her words stuck with me long after we'd finished our makeover session for the night. Lying in bed, I couldn't stop replaying the moment in my mind. For the first time in my life, I felt like I wasn't pretending or hiding. The clothes, the makeup, even the way Mandy had styled my hair, it all felt like pieces of a puzzle clicking into place. The next morning, Aunt Carol surprised me with a small shopping trip. "I figured you might want some things of your own," she said as we pulled into the parking lot of a local mall. My stomach churned with a mix of excitement and nerves. This was uncharted territory for me. Mandy had always been the one to guide me, but now I was stepping out into the world as my truest self, or at least the beginning of it. We started in a modest boutique filled with casual clothes and accessories. Aunt Carol encouraged me to browse freely, and after a few tentative glances, I found myself drawn to a rack of summer dresses. One in particular caught my eye, a light blue sundress with delicate white flowers embroidered along the hem. "That's lovely," Aunt Carol said, noticing my hesitation. "Try it on." I nodded, clutching the dress tightly as I made my way to the fitting room. Standing in front of the mirror, I carefully slipped it on. The fabric was soft against my skin, and the way it hugged my frame felt right. I stared at my reflection, hardly able to believe it was me. When I stepped out to show Aunt Carol, her eyes lit up. "Oh, sweetheart," she said, pulling me into a hug. "You look beautiful." Tears pricked at the corners of my eyes. "Thanks, Aunt Carol." After we paid for the dress and a few other items Aunt Carol insisted on, we stopped by a shoe store where I found a pair of simple white sandals to match. By the time we left the mall, I felt like I was floating. Back at home, Mandy greeted us with a knowing grin. "Looks like someone had a successful trip," she said, eyeing the shopping bags. "You have no idea," I replied, unable to hide my smile. That evening, I wore the blue sundress to dinner. It was just the three of us, but it felt like a special occasion. Aunt Carol even lit candles, joking that it was to celebrate my debut. Mandy snapped a picture of me at the table, and for once, I didn't shy away from the camera. Over the next few days, I wore my new clothes almost exclusively. Mandy helped me pair outfits, and Aunt Carol continued to offer her unwavering support. But as the end of my stay approached, I began to feel a pang of anxiety. "What's wrong?" Mandy asked one afternoon as we lounged in the living room. I hesitated. "I'm just worried about going back home." She frowned.
Why?
"You've made so much progress. Don't let this stop you." "It's not that simple," I said, staring at my hands. "My parents don't know about any of this. What if they don't accept me?" Mandy scooted closer and placed a comforting hand on my knee. "Listen, no matter what happens, you have me and Mom in your corner. And honestly, I think your parents love you more than you give them credit for." Aunt Carol chimed in from the kitchen. "She's right, sweetheart. It might take some time, but if you're honest with them, I believe they'll come around." Their words gave me a glimmer of hope, but the fear lingered. The day my parents came to pick me up, I decided to take a bold step. Instead of changing back into my old boyish clothes, I stayed in the blue sundress. I styled my hair the way Mandy had taught me and even put on a touch of mascara and lip gloss. When my parents arrived, my mom's eyes widened and my dad froze in the doorway. "Wow," my mom said, breaking the silence. "You look different." I forced a nervous smile.
This is me, Mom.
"This is who I am." My dad cleared his throat. "Are you sure about this?" I nodded. I've never been more sure. The car ride home was quiet, but my mom kept stealing glances at me in the rear-view mirror. When we finally got home, she pulled me aside while my dad carried my suitcase inside. "I want you to know that I love you no matter what," she said, her voice trembling. "This is just a lot to process." "I know," I said, tears streaming down my face. "But this is who I've always been. I just didn't know how to tell you." She hugged me tightly. "We'll figure this out together." It wasn't an easy road from there. My dad took longer to come around, and there were moments when I doubted myself. But Mandy and Aunt Carol were always just a phone call away, ready to remind me of how far I'd come. Now, looking back on that summer, I realize it wasn't just about trying on clothes or experimenting with makeup. It was about discovering who I was and finding the courage to embrace it. And none of it would have been possible without Mandy's wardrobe, Aunt Carol's support, and their unwavering belief in me. That summer didn't just change the way I dressed, it changed my life. Thank you so much for watching till now. It means the world to have you here. This community is all about empowering each other and celebrating the incredible journeys of everyone on their path to living authentically. If you're ever feeling lost or alone, remember you have a whole family here for you. Hit that subscribe button. Smash that like button. And let's keep inspiring each other, sending you all the love and strength in the world. Until next time, live your life by your rules.